Robert J. Conley here. I'm here to tell you that the past can be one of the biggest dangers to your future, and not in the way that you might think. So one of the greatest dangers that any of us face is what German psychologist Karl Duncker termed functional fixedness. Functional fixedness. Now, he used it in terms of situations where he was talking about adapting tangible objects. One of his tangible objects and adapting them for things for which they weren't initially intended. And one of his famous experiments was to give participants a box full of thumbtacks and a candle and say, attach the candle to the wall. And people would try to, tack the candle to the wall. They'd try to melt wax and stick the candle to the wall. And the solution was to take the tacks out of the box, tack the empty box to the wall, and then use it as a candle holder to hold the candle. And it's one of those things where when somebody sees it, there's like, oh, how could I not have seen that? But the power of it was to instruct us how our existing frames of reference are oftentimes so fixed. And, he coined the term functional fixedness. And, one of the things that people could say is that, well, you're just talking about creative thinking. And yes, we are talking about creative thinking, but one of the aspects, this is about one of the things that blocks creative thinking. This is what kind of can prevent us from actually creatively thinking. And so part of the process of just actively saying and sitting down and going, okay, how many different ways could I look at this or this or this? And implement a process where you actually do that. Now, there are a couple of dealing in the animate world, some of it fictional, some of it factual. All of our great innovations are overcoming this element. And so sorry, I kind of lost my place here. Anyway, I was going to talk about a couple examples of people overcoming this phenomenon. And this is really kind of brutal. So anybody that's watching is probably either really enjoying this or clicking out. So one of my favorite fictional ones was like in Gilligan's Island. If you've ever watched Gilligan's Island, the professor was always coming up with new things. And one of his episodes, he made a hot air balloon out of raincoats, because when you go on a 3-hour tour, you got a bunch of raincoats on the boat. But anyway, he glued them together with sticky stuff from the palm trees and obviously, start a fire and use that as a heating element. And so, all of, most of Gilligan's Island, or half of it was about overcoming functional fixedness. If they had been fixed in that way, if they hadn't had the professor, they all would have perished. And, in real life, I've used the example in the past that, the snowmobile is the result of combining items for which they were not initially designed. You take a lawnmower engine, a pair of skis, and some tank treads, and you make them into a snowmobile. And that was overcoming functional fixedness. In fact, the thing that absolutely drives everything going on today, that wonderful thing on the microchip called the integrated circuit, exists on sand. And so if in fact scientists hadn't come to understand silicon, which is what basically sand is, and then and then go through the mental processes and then the physical processes of the mental process of seeing what it could do, and the physical process of actually refining it to the degree it needed to be done, and all the steps that took. Every one of those steps is about overcoming functional fixedness. And so now I want to turn this on you, and I want to challenge you, because this talk is about helping you to continue to strive for your highest and best use, for your most fulfilling thing, for where you can contribute the most. And, oftentimes, as I've talked about in the past, the foundational four, right? Temperament, natural abilities, values, and interests. And a lot of times we can be using a few of those and not all of them. And one of the things I like to say is that your values and your interests will drive you. That's what will give you energy and zest. And it's your natural abilities and your temperament that will sustain you, that will enable you to perform at high levels. But here's the challenge, is that we continue to have these values and interests that drive us, but we get locked into functional fixedness on our aptitudes and our temperament. Now, one could say that and this is true, and the science believes that longitudinally, what those are that for the long term. But what happens is that in our functional fixedness, we are in danger. We're constantly in danger of saying, well, I've only used these for this in the past, therefore that's the only place they apply, instead of expanding our horizons. And so, I'm just going to lay out there are four things to do to try to work through your own. If you're seeking more and more fulfillment, higher and higher productivity in work, and functional fixedness is playing into it, then here are four things to look at. Test your perception of yourself. Are you seeing yourself accurately? And again, this is that whole fixedness thing, and this is where it's hard for you to do this on your own. You need consultation with a professional like myself or someone else who can help you see accurately how your temperament and natural abilities are. While they are fixed, they can be applied in multiple arenas, and they can be aligned to fit in with your values and your interests. Number two, where's your fear of failure lurking? Have you lost, maybe you never had a zest for trial and error, but is fear of failure, impeding you? And one of the challenges is that when you're even moderately successful in one thing, it becomes even more daunting potentially to attempt to then try something else. And that's why, over and over again, you'll see people in the 40-year march of misery because they're locked in. They've got this fixed functional fixedness thought process that is not allowing them to look around and to apply their gifts to other areas. So look at that fear of failure. We live. I'm pretty sure I don't have an international audience at this point, but I'll just say it. If you live in America, and the implications for failing in this modern era, you're not going to go hungry. You might be embarrassed. You might have those other kind of intangible things. But the reality is that the barriers in modern American life, the barriers to chasing that highest and best use of your talents, is not a real thing. So there's that. Number three is just family and cultural background. This may offend some people, and I don't mean to offend it, but our own groups closest to us are oftentimes the ones that will impede us the most. It's the family member that says, oh, we don't do that. It's the cultural group we belong to. Oh, that's not how we act. It's those kinds of things that can fix you into position. And they are a mind game that you need to meet head on and decide which is it you want to do. Do you want to be your highest and best self, or do you want to go ahead and just, plunge along in that arena? And then finally, all of this can be done in your thinking can be clarified. And this is number four. Number four, just being that you need to proactively form alliances with new people that can show you new ways to look at things and to see how your tools can be applied elsewhere. And one of the things that my cynical side says that many people who say think outside the box aren't quite as creative as they hope to be, because true creativity knows there is no box. And so what I want to urge you to do is to take these measures, keep moving forward, do the work to let go of this functional fixedness that might be holding you back. Explode the old box, or say it never existed, and then build yourself a new box. Build your own box. Build your own box from your gifts, in which you can stand on it, you can operate in it, but go forward and knock it out of the park. All right. I'm Robert J. Conley. I will see you next time.